On the same day of this year's Skyhounds competition, Nathan Grieve took a trip down Route 66, if only in spirit, at the Sturgis Falls Classic Car Show.
Mustangs, Chargers, and Firebirds, oh my. Thanks, Shelby. I'm here at the 9th annual Sturgis Falls Classic Car Show, and this one looks like it may be the biggest yet, and it's attracted drivers from all over. The cars featured weren't all classics either. Cars included some future classics, and some cars that have a very small but loyal following. In fact, the car show has more than just cars. There were 2 classes alone just for motorcycles. A benefit of this type of show is that everyone is encouraged to participate. Some shows have very strict regulations, allowing only cars that fall within a certain year range to enter. Others will frown upon cars that aren't immaculate, calling a single missing stitch in the seating a cardinal offense. In the Midwest especially, many local car shows consist of a few Mustangs, a handful of Camaros, and a bevy of Bel Airs. Of course, those usual players were all present, but at Sturgis, variety reigns supreme. There are classes for Chevrolet, Ford, and Mopar. Each class is split into categories for cars that look like they could have just come off the showroom floor, or some that have had more than a little work done, and everything in between. There are classes for convertibles, trucks, Thunderbirds, foreign cars, works in progress, and many more. Newer vehicles are also encouraged to join, with several categories made just for more recently made cars. The day is about having fun and looking at some fantastic automobiles. Nothing more, nothing less. The show had a great turnout, with most of the categories being filled. Of course, some classes were more packed than others. While the 1968 and newer Corvettes came out in force, only one car showed up to compete in the vintage 1953 to 1967 class. As I walked around Policeman's Park, I noticed that there were some very rare birds in this year's show. One that immediately caught my eye was this 1986 Pontiac Grand Prix 2+2, one of only 1,200 or so ever built. The car is so rare that it's commonly mistaken for a Chevy Monte Carlo. As the owner told me, it's best to just smile and say thanks. Just a short walk down the row was this 1976 Honda Goldwing limited edition. Around 3,400 were produced to celebrate the United States bicentennial, and a far smaller number have survived into 2015. I also came across a 1963 Avanti, a small sports car made with the dying breath of the Studebaker Corporation. As some of the accessories found on this car indicate, Studebaker owners are a dedicated, if small, group of enthusiasts. There were many other cars that were not quite as rare but equally as exciting. For example, this 1971 Plymouth Gtx. It began its life as a Plymouth Sebring, but after an accident that nearly killed the car for good in 1984, a slow journey began to restore it to its former glory, and then some. This particular car has been meticulously restored, using only factory-correct parts, even down to the nuts and bolts. Even the label on the master cylinder was tracked down and placed on the car to bring it to showroom condition. The car recently took top honors in its class at a show in Minnesota, and the owner came to Cedar Falls with high hopes. They weren't in vain, as his Plymouth was awarded first place in the factory stock Mopar 1970 to present class. While some people get enjoyment from trying to preserve their cars in a fixed point in time, others have a very different agenda. Their idea is that the factory sends out a car that serves as a good starting point for something even greater. Modders can take many different forms. Some drop the height and bolt on gigantic wheels to their cars, usually from the 60s and up, to make up the lowrider crowd. Others install aggressive body kits and paint their cars, usually Japanese or Korean in origin, in flashy colors as part of the tuner contingency. Some like to build sleeper cars. They will leave their car almost untouched on the outside, save for a few changes, but put massive amounts of effort into the car's power. Perhaps the most commonly spotted car at this show was not one car at all, but a certain group of cars. The cars that have gone out of production seem to have the biggest following. The Studebaker Avanti with its sleek looks and rarity. The Chevrolet Corvair, once called unsafe at any speed by Ralph Nader, now proudly wears that label. The Pontiac Gto, the car most often credited with kicking off the muscle car craze, and the Pontiac Firebird that followed it to take part in the pony car wars of the 60s and 70s. Oldsmobile, Mercury, Plymouth, AMC, and more. All were represented in the show, sometimes with several different examples. Some of the rivalries from the old days still continue today. On one side of the field, Mustangs sit together, ranging from a 1968 fastback that Steve McQueen would find satisfactory, to a very angry-looking white and green 2014 Mustang. Not too far away were Camaros and Firebirds. The antithesis to the 68 Mustang sat directly across from it, in the form of a black Trans Am with a familiar name written on the door. Nearby sat another black Trans Am, this time a much newer WS6 with flames on the side, chrome under the hood, and a custom red and black interior. Half the fun of a car show is the people you meet. The car show crowd is just about the most tightly knit group of people you'll ever find. They're all brought together for one reason. They want to either show their car or look at somebody else's. Nearly everyone there is extraordinarily friendly. And as I found out, if you wear a racing shirt and carry a camera, you will meet everyone. It's certainly worth taking the time to speak to the various owners who've gathered together. Maybe you've got a similar car or bike that you're trying to restore, but you just can't find that one last part you need to perfect your build. Maybe you're looking to buy a new vehicle, and they know where you can find one. Some owners are even looking to sell their cars, and you can start an impromptu inspection. Perhaps you aren't looking for anything more than a story. That's the easiest thing to find, and the hardest thing to forget. Every car and every driver has a story. It's what makes automobile ownership so exciting. However, some people say that the auto industry as we know it is dying. They say that kids just don't care about cars anymore. Based on what I observed at the 2015 Sturgis Falls Classic Car Show, I'd say that isn't quite true. As I found out, it looks like there's at least one youngster who happens to agree with me.
Oh, that type of thing. On Highway 3.
With your Sturgis Falls Car Show coverage, I'm Nathan Grieve.
Thanks, Nathan. If you have a classic car that you'd like to show, consider entering next year. If you register online, you'll save $5 off the entry fee that you'll pay on the day of the event.